How will Seattle's surprising OC hire affect KW3, JSN, and more? What should we be doing in draft rooms about a potential Super Bowl reunion in Pittsburgh? And at what point does Travis Hunter become a value in the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament? Plus, four-time FFPC League champ Bob Hogan joins me to discuss the Luther Burden hype, under-the-radar offenses to target in your fantasy drafts right now, and so much more. We've got a great show for you. Bob Hogan is here. I'm Eric Balkman. Stick around. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than need a lesson.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Thank you, Rob. Greetings and salutations to all of you Balkaholics. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening or listening, streaming, downloading, whatever. Maybe you're watching this later. Welcome into the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is normally the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. He is unable to make the proceedings tonight. He's on his way back from New Orleans and could not get back to Louisville in time, but that's okay because I got a special co-host who I'll introduce here in a second. Coming up on tonight's show, we're going to wax poetic on Tyreek Hill's early season draft stock, who the number 2 wide receiver in Denver is going to be this season. And Bob Hogan, a 4-time FFPC league champion, joins me to break down this year's class of rookie receivers that are not going to be going at the earliest part of drafts. Think of the big 3, maybe the big 4, the big 5. We're also going to talk about whether James Cook is on his do not draft list and much more. If you want to connect with us on X, you can do so at HSFF Hour. I'm at Eric Balkman. Bob is at Hooterville A's. That's Hooterville AS. You can always check out Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. I just registered for a bunch of leagues there this past Tuesday night. I'm in a couple of KFFSC main event slow drafts, Draft Masters slow draft there, as well as some other slow drafts. So hop aboard, draft against me. It'll be a lot of fun to pass the time until we get to the thick of drafting season. And then, of course, the start of the 2026 NFL season as well. Post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HSFF Hour. You can email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, X posts, and emails in the fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce, and our producer and mutual friend Rob. Also want to let you know that we have plenty of FFPC Dynasty and FFPC Empire Dynasty orphans available. MyFFPC.com/Dynasty for sale. If you go on there, you'll notice that the Dynasty leagues that we have start at $77. They go up to $5,000, but many of the orphans have been discounted big time, some as little as $1. So you're basically getting these teams for free, some of the teams for free that first year. Enjoy it, manage it, see what you can do with it, and maybe turn it into a juggernaut by 2027, or maybe even win in 2026. I've seen that happen as well. So check that out, myffpc.com/Dynasty for sale. We're also going to be citing a lot of FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament ADP tonight. And if you want to put that to good use, register now, myffpc.com, for the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. $125 entry on that and a $40,000 grand prize. And if you want to play the Superflex version, we have that as well. $35 entry with a $10,000 grand prize. Register now at myffpc.com, but hurry because both those tournaments will close when the NFL draft starts. So you basically have a little bit over 2 months. Or if they fill up before that, they fill up before that, and then you're out. As Ferrell always says, don't be a wish I had. And the 2 contests you really don't want to be a wish I had in, are two gorillas this year. The FFPC Big Gorilla is back, $350 entry, $1 million grand prize, 7 bananas promo is live, and the early Rampage tournament is going on right now. So you're basically, when you register for the Big Gorilla and draft now, if you're one of the first 200 leagues, you're going to be entered into a second tournament for free, featuring a $25,000 grand prize. And for the first time ever, the FFPC Baby Gorilla available. All the same rules, same format as the Big Gorilla, just $125 to enter this, but you still win $100,000 if you cash it and beat the 5,999 other teams. Those are all available at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share with your friends, share with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. I'll get you the updated schedule on what's going on with the FFPC family of podcasts next week, coming up at the end of the show. For now, I want to bring in my co-host for this evening. Oh, by the way, Oinker's here too. I know James Hicks will be remiss if I did not bring Oinker onto the program. But Oinker is here ready to talk tonight, as well as our co-host. He is a winner of 4 FFPC high-stakes leagues in his career, as well as numerous KFFSC leagues over the course of the last 10-plus years as well. I spent Super Bowl weekend down just outside of Louisville drafting in a bunch of drafts with him, and he's here tonight not only to reference some of those drafts, but we're going to talk about some fresh player evaluations coming up for the tail end of February drafting. We'll talk about what you should be doing if you are drafting early on in the FFPC season, like many of you are who are watching and listening, and whatever else we can cram into 60 minutes. You follow him on X at Hooterville A's. Please welcome onto the program Mr. Bob Hogan. Bob, good evening, sir.
Good evening, Eric. How you doing?
Doing excellent. I would say welcome back to the show, because the last time you were on, I think it was it a live on HSFFO or Big Gorilla that you and your grandson were both on?
Yes, we were doing that, and I'm disappointed I couldn't have him here tonight, but he's got a basketball game in the morning, so he is already asleep.
Yeah, he's got to get that rest. Got to get that rest to make sure that he is firing on all cylinders tomorrow. I'm pleased to have you aboard tonight. Thank you for pinch hitting for Ferrell, who could not make it. He sends his regrets, but he is hopefully just listening to us on his drive back from New Orleans to Louisville. I hope he's not watching us on YouTube, but I don't put anything past anyone. Bob, before we get into the fantasy football portion of the program tonight, when you are not winning all these FFPC and KFFSC leagues, tell the listeners and the viewers what you're doing for a living.
Well, I'll give you a quick story. Back in the late 1970s and 80s, I taught high school. I left teaching after 3 years and did 43 years of computer work before retiring in early 2024. Got bored to death because I don't play much golf. So I got my teaching license back, and now I'm teaching middle school science at a Catholic school, K through 8. So I get to see my grandkids every day because they go there.
That is awesome. That is what a career arc on that. Now, what were you teaching in the 3 years when you started teaching? Were you also teaching science?
Yeah, I was teaching physics and earth science, as well as some algebra and calculus. Pretty much all the gamut of math along with science.
So from teaching science to working in computers for 4 decades to being retired. So how long were you retired? Like 1 year?
I was retired for 9 months, I guess, 8 months. But I went back to school almost immediately. I found out to get my license, I just needed 2 classes. So I took a couple here locally in Southern Indiana and got my license.
Good for you, man. That's awesome. What a story. And no end in sight, right? We all got to have a purpose. Your purpose is teaching, hanging out with your grandkids, and playing fantasy football, which is great. That's not a bad way to do it, Bob. I think you got this life thing figured out. Let's get into, speaking of fantasy football, let's get into fantasy football tonight. Ferrell Elliott, by the way, watching. Please, eyes on the road, Ferrell. I'm telling you right now, I don't want to hear a news report tomorrow morning about anything that might have befallen you on the roadway. So be safe. I want to talk about your Big Gorilla Championship team from last year, one of the leagues that you won a league title in. One of the big reasons for that win was Kyron Williams, who, once again, I was listening to Jake Seeley talk about this the other day, and he was saying, he's never seen anybody be so successful, and yet everybody seemingly wants to tank his draft stock, right? He's not a pedigreed guy. He's going to split with Blake Corum. There's going to be regression coming. And seemingly every single year, this guy finishes as right around the top 12 running back. Same thing happened last year. And I have to ask this for this upcoming season, We saw Blake Corum kind of creep into that backfield, taking over some of the volume that Kyron Williams has owned over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. What do you think the split is going to look like between Williams and Corum in that Rams backfield this upcoming season? Now that we know they're kind of already, the band is back together. Stafford's coming back. We know Williams and Corum are going to be leading that backfield. For fantasy purposes, what's the best way to handle this, Bob?
Well, I'll tell you, in those 6 drafts we did on Super Bowl weekend a couple of weeks ago, I got no Kyron Williams. So maybe that tells you what my thought is. He was going 4th, 5th round in those drafts, and I thought that was too high with him maybe splitting more and more with Corum. Williams was good for me up through the playoffs, and he was really good. But toward the end of the season, they did give the ball more and more to Corum. But honestly, Rico Dowdle and Wandale were my 2 best picks because I got them in double-digit rounds in that league.
Did you, just speaking of Wandale Robinson, did you see anything? I mean, because sometimes I ask people when they like Dowdle's a perfect example. I drafted a good amount of Dowdle last year, but if somebody were to ask me, oh, what did you see in Dowdle? I'd be like, I don't know. I didn't see a ton. I mean, I know he's talented enough to carry the load. I knew that unless Hubbard went down, he would never be the bell cow there. But I knew that there's a possibility where I could get this window where he performed for 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even more than that, where I could utilize him. And that's exactly what happened. Wandale Robinson's a little bit different, Bob, because I think like in order to draft him, you really have to like a receiver, right? Running back is such an opportunity-based thing in fantasy football. But wide receiver, not to say that you don't have to have talent to be a running back, but I think wide receiver, you do have to have some modicum of talent in order to kind of force your way into the lineup. Because if one receiver goes down in a specific team, that doesn't always necessarily mean that another receiver is going to step in and do everything. And I don't think anybody saw Wandale Robinson coming to the degree that he had last year. Obviously, the neighbor's injury had something to go with it. But yeah, Wandale Robinson's an interesting guy. What did you see in him that made you want to draft him late?
Well, you talk about opportunity, and opportunity in a PPR league is catches and targets. And he was a target hog in 23 and 24. So for me, it's he's never going to get, well, he did one time, but he's generally not going to get you a 25 or 30-point game. But if you're getting him as your wide receiver 3 or flex or a fill-in, and he's going to get you 12 or 13 points a week just from catching 7 balls for 50 yards.
Yeah,
I had a ton of him last year and the year before.
And he had that really big spike week game early in the season too, which kind of set him up 1,000-yard season. So congratulations to Wandale.
And actually, sadly, and a couple of teams I didn't play him that week.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, that's the way it happens. Yeah, it's just whatever. The FFPC never too early ADP, getting it back to the Rams backfield here. Right now, I'm looking at Kyron Williams as running back 17. I'm looking at Blake Corum as running back 34. Kyron Williams 312, Blake Corum 904, and I'm getting this data from Fantasy Mojo at Fantasy Mojo on X, fantasymojo.com. It's run by Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes Challenge. Anytime we cite ADP, it's through his website. Check it out, especially if you're playing in the FFPC. Get one of those very affordable memberships there at Fantasy Mojo. So I'm talking about basically 5.5 rounds difference between Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. I don't know if you got any Corum out in Kentucky this a couple of weeks ago, Bob, but it sounds like you would much rather, if you had your druthers, if you're going to pick one of these Rams running backs, it sounds like you want to pass on Williams and you would rather take Corum in the 9th.
Absolutely. And I plan to, if Corum stays down at that spot. I don't know that he will. I did not get him in Kentucky a couple of weeks ago, but that's just the way the draft went every time. I either had enough running backs and I was trying to make up for a lack of wide receivers, or looking into rookie running backs or something at that point. And so I just never did get him, but I was targeting him. I don't know how many times I had him on my next pick list, and you or somebody else got him in front of me.
I think it's funny because I wanted him in more leagues. I think I may have only got him once, but I did. I would do that fist clench every time somebody would take him in front of me, because I do think that there is value in him this year, and be very excited to see what happens, especially if Kyron Williams were to miss any significant time. Core him in that offense as the 1A. That could be very, very lucrative for anybody who invests in him this year. Let's move on to the team that the Rams defeated in order to get to the NFC Championship this past year, and that's the Chicago Bears. Luther Burden was also on this championship squad that you had last year in the FFPC Big Gorilla. Currently, his FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball ADP has moved quite a bit up from where it was at this point last year, obviously. He is now a mid-fifth-round pick. He's being drafted as wide receiver 24. Bob, does that strike you as a price that you are in or out on Luther Burden this year, considering there's a lot of hype in the high-stakes industry around this player for this upcoming season?
Again, I did not get any Burden, but it's not because I didn't want to. I felt like he was going a little rich for me, but not really too much. It just he never really fell to me when I wanted him. I am a little concerned if he goes up that high or if he goes any higher, that there may not be enough balls to go around in Chicago. I've got a Dunze on some dynasty teams, so I'm a little prejudiced toward him, and I keep thinking he's going to be better than he is. But what really worries me is Loveland. Loveland looks like the guy that's going to be the main target on that team.
Yeah, I would agree. And sky's the limit for Loveland this year. I do think, and we'll see how this breaks down. One of the things, because I drafted Burden a decent amount at the Super Bowl, the Super Sunday for the KFFSC. I drafted him a decent amount there. I think what's going to be interesting, you and I are in agreement here on Loveland being the guy on that offense. However, Odunze was battling like that foot injury, right? Towards the end of the season and even the mid part of the season, because he came out. He had a really, really good looking early part of the season, and then he gets dinged up. And then I didn't know, like, it's so tough to tell. Like, was he hampered and not getting the ball thrown to him because he was playing through that foot injury because the Bears were trying to get to a Super Bowl? Or was Burden just that much better? I don't know. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see. We're going to know as soon as the season starts. If Odunze starts off, similar to how he started off the 2025 season, we'll know, okay, it was probably the foot. And it looks like it's wheels up for Odunze. It could, quite frankly, be wheels up for everybody on that offense. There's a non-zero chance that DJ Moore is not playing with the Bears this year too, which means that, and I think Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson, they run a good enough offense to support Loveland, Odunze, and Burden to varying degrees on that too. It'll be something to watch. And maybe
I agree. Zacchaeus also got a little bit of play in the middle of the season. And then toward the end, DJ Moore actually came back some. It was like they were going to him at the end of ball games when they felt they had to get a first down or they had to get the ball in the end zone. He was catching passes that, to me, seemingly out of nowhere, because I thought he was washed.
I don't know. Like, it's not like he's that old, but it just seemed like he was so forgotten in that offense, just, for whatever reason. And Bob, knowing that you have Odunze and some dynasty teams, if this is true that the Bears are actually going to move to Indiana, are you going to become a Bears fan?
Well, that would be a really long story. My best friend forever is a huge Bears fan, so I can't possibly like them.
Well, that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Let's talk about, this is another player that was on your team last year that won that Big Gorilla League. And he's an interesting conundrum this year in fantasy football, and that's Javonte Williams. He's going at the 505 in FFPC Never Too Early drafts right now, just so everybody's aware. He's basically back-to-back with Quinshon Judkins. He's about a half round ahead of DeAndre Swift, and he's about a half round behind Cam Scattaboo. He's an interesting player because we don't know exactly where he's going to be playing. If you put a gun to my head and say you need to pick one, I would probably say he ends up in Dallas. Would not surprise me if he ends up somewhere else, perhaps Houston, Kansas City, any of these teams, Seattle. I mean, I don't know. Do you plan on Javonte Williams being back in Dallas? Do you plan on him being the bell cow again? Is that how you're approaching Javonte Williams in drafts right now? Because if that is the case, running back 23, I think is a pretty good bargain for him.
Yeah, I did get him in one draft down there at the casino a couple of weeks ago. But last year when I was getting him, and I got him a lot, one of the big paybacks in Louisville, the $1,000 entries, I got him in the 14th round. And I mean, that was an unbelievable steal to get him there. As far as this coming year, I think he will end up back at Dallas, but they may end up having to pay more for him than Jones wants to. But wherever he does end up, they're going to be paying something for him that they're going to be paying starter money for him.
Yeah.
And so I don't think he's going to go into a 1A or even a 2 role.
I'd love to see him back in Dallas, and I'd love to see Pickens either extended or franchise tagged to see what that Dallas offense is capable of for a second straight year. You know, their defense was so terrible last year. I think I read today, I can't remember where I was reading it, that the Cowboys gave up nearly as many points as the Rams scored this year, which is and the Cowboys, gave up the most points in the NFL last week. So it was sort of a perfect last year. So it's sort of a perfect storm because Prescott, Lamb, when he was healthy, Pickens, Williams, Ferguson, I mean, all these guys were crushing it. And I think they could do it again this year as long as Dallas doesn't improve that defense. So spend the money, Jay. This is my message to Jarrah. Spend the money on Javonte Williams. Spend the money on Pickens. Don't worry about the defense. And just let fantasy owners reap the benefits of drafting Cowboys.
Absolutely.
So the Dallas Cowboys, I just mentioned the Cowboys and the Rams. Those are not under the radar offenses at all. I mean, we know that if you're targeting those offenses, you're probably going to be pretty happy with Nakua, Kyron Williams, Stafford, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens, Prescott, all these guys. And maybe you won't be happy with them, but they're going fairly high in drafts right now. So we know how people are valuing those two offenses. Are there any other offenses, Bob, as you look around the NFL that people are kind of sleeping on, that people should be looking at some of the players on this offense for fantasy football that – quite frankly, maybe they're sleeping on right now, but as we get closer to summer, maybe people start waking up and say, oh man, I should have been drafting these guys on this team all spring long, and I didn't do it. Are there any offenses like that for you right now?
I don't know that I'd call them under the radar, but I think Indianapolis is an example of a team that is getting underdrafted, especially if Pittman leaves. And I think there's a good chance he's going to be gone to Buffalo or the Rams or someplace. Pierce, Downs, Warren, they were all fabulous when Daniel Jones was under quarterback. Especially Downs and Warren were better when they had him. So I think Indy is one. Carolina, if they settle on Chuba or they find out Jonathan Brooks can actually play, they're a team that may be getting underdrafted. Coker really came on into the season. Leggett, whatever he is, he looked like he could maybe play toward the last few games, and Teteroa, I think he's the next superstar wide receiver.
I look at Carolina, I'm like, God, they're just like one player away from being like a really significant offense in the NFL. Whether that player is another receiver to play next to Coker and McMillan, whether it is a running back that can stabilize that backfield, Jonathan Brooks, like if he comes back and looks the part, then maybe that could put him over the top. They don't need much in that division. I mean, they made the playoffs last year, and they weren't playing all that well. And I feel like that they might only be one player away. And I'm with you on McMillan. I think he's the highest drafted Carolina Panther. I don't think it's close this year. That's somebody that we should be watching out for too. The Indianapolis one is interesting because, well, let me ask you this, Bob. Do you believe that Alec Pierce returns to the Colts this year, or are they going to let him go?
Well, I think they're almost certainly letting Pittman go. And if Pittman goes, then I don't know why they would let both of them go. And I think Pierce will be cheaper.
So you're
Carolina needs Greg Olsen to come out of retirement. They have. I'm holding Jatavian Sanders on 15 or 20 or 1,000 dynasty teams, and I don't know why.
Yeah, it's tough because like when he came out, I was kind of like, oh, there might be something here. And there's athleticism there, just hasn't matched in fantasy production. I'm all for it. Greg Olsen or Wesley Walls, one of those guys, bring him back to Carolina. It would be fantastic. Getting back to Indianapolis real quick. So you believe the most likely scenario for the Colts is extending Alec Pierce or re-inking him, but letting Pittman go as a cap casualty, right?
I think that is what will happen, and I think Pittman would maybe be welcome to that.
Yeah.
I don't know that he was unhappy in Indy, but I think he wants to go somewhere and to win now.
Yeah. Yeah. And certainly with Pittman, he's one of those players. And I know I feel bad we're talking about Pittman without Ferrell here, but he's one of those guys that I think can go to any number of teams and kind of fit right in. You know, it's like Kevin Durant in basketball, right? He can fit into any offensive system, no matter who's around him. You know, whether you got guards, forwards, centers, bigs, or whatever, he will fit in and it'll make your team better. I think that's how Pittman is. He can fit in any type of offense. He can do a lot for you.
And we both know how much Ferrell loves him.
We do. Absolutely. We got to stop talking about him because Ferrell's going to, he'll get the link to the show and he'll pop in while he's driving, which I don't want him to do because it's just not safe. We talked about drafting at Caesars this past Super Bowl weekend. When you're talking about drafting that early, or even early, you know, being right now, or maybe in the next couple of weeks as we enter March, Bob, how has your drafting strategy changed when you're drafting this early compared to when you're drafting in late August or early September? Are you doing anything differently in your approach to constructing these teams?
Well, I honestly hope I'm not, because if I'm changing things significantly, that means I'm not happy with what I was doing. But if there is one thing I try to avoid early is recency bias. You know, last year it was so easy to look at Saquon and Derrick Henry and say, oh, you know, Saquon should be top 5 in the first round, not just running back, but top 5. This year it might actually be Jonathan Taylor. I got him late, some places, you know, late second. So relatively late last year. He overperformed that the first 2/3 of the season. And what I'm seeing is people are drafting him around the end of round 1, early 2. And I don't know that he's going to do that again.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing too with and I can't remember, I might have been Bob Coe I was talking to several people about this, but I feel like when you draft this early, because so much can happen, not only with injuries and in training camp and everything that is so far in the future, but the NFL draft, free agency, there's so much that can happen. I don't want to use the term reckless, but I do draft a little bit more recklessly, where I'm taking the big swings. I'm taking home run swings, especially when we get to like rounds, 7, 8, 9 on, because I know so much can happen. And you mentioned getting Javonte Williams in the 14th round in one of the big paybacks at KFFSC last year. And that's the kind of stuff that I think that can happen right now. You got to get a little bit lucky. But listen, we're drafting now. We know luck is going to be involved to a certain degree. I feel like I'm taking more big swings rather than just swinging for contact. I want to hit the home runs here more in February and March than I do in August or September.
Yeah, and you talk about taking swings. One of the things I think you mentioned we might talk about was me drafting a bunch of rookie wide receivers.
Yes, let's get into that actually, because you did this a ton. I noticed in the drafts that it seemed like you do it sometimes 3 rounds in a row, Bob, where you take rookie receiver, and you did it in multiple drafts too.
Yeah, maybe even 5 times in a row. I know in the big payback draft on that one, I went running back heavy early. I took running backs in, I think, first, third, and fourth rounds. In the second round, I took a dead spot because I took Rashee Rice, and who knows what's going to happen with him.
Could be good too. I mean, he might not be suspended at all this year. We don't know,
But and I had a couple of backup wide receivers after that to fill out a roster in Cortland Sutton, and I think maybe DK was the other one. I can't remember for certain. But then I took 5 rookies, and my thought was, if I can get 2 of these guys to hit, I'll be in good shape. And with the running backs I got CMC and Jacobs and Travion Henderson. I'm looking at a little piece of paper here. Woody Marks, Rico Dowdle. I got all of those guys. I took them all in the first 9 rounds. Mm-hmm. So by the time it was time to go, rookies were the only swings I could take. There really wasn't. I didn't think there were any veterans that were left that had a chance to really go big. And you almost need to have somebody go big.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. I understand that a lot of these rookies won't hit, but one or two of them might, maybe three of them, maybe four, especially when you're talking about this late in the draft. And if you get those guys, same stuff with veterans, right? Like sometimes we don't know, but rookies we really don't know because none of these guys have played NFL football before. And maybe they embrace it and they're awesome. Maybe they don't. But if they do embrace it and they are awesome, you want them on your team. Let's talk a little bit more about rookies here. I'll lead you with this. I think most people, and based on how drafting is going right now in the FFPC and KFFSC, everybody's favorite rookie is Jeremiah Love. He has ADP right now of running back 11 at the 209. So that seems to be the highest rookie off the board. We usually don't see another rookie off the board after that, at least in the FFPC, for about another 4 rounds here. Bob, if I were to ask you who your favorite non-Jeremiah Love rookie is this year, who would it be?
Probably Cornell Tate. I just think he is NFL ready wherever he lands. So I think he's going to be a standout. Wasn't able to get him though because I just don't like to draft rookies early. I know last year with Hudson, my grandson who's 9, drafting with me in one of the slow drafts we had. I picked Austin Genty 111, and Hudson said, "Well, you just finish this draft yourself because you've ruined your team." Should have listened to him.
Wise word from the mouths of babes, Bob. From the mouths of babes.
In later rounds, Jacoby Lane is a guy I got a few shots of, and after that draft is when they had the Senior Bowl, or in that same general time, and he's coming out the Senior Bowl climbing up draft boards. So I think he has the possibility to be an end zone threat, maybe a deep threat somewhere, and depending on where he lands, you just don't know where these guys are going.
Lane's an interesting guy too, just real quick, not to interrupt you, but playing next to Mekhi Lemon last year, had Lemon not been on that team, who knows what Lane's stats would have looked like. Mm-hmm. And maybe he's talked about, in the big 3 as well. Please keep going. I'm sorry.
Other guy, Elijah Surratt. I'm an IU guy. I was on campus when they went 27-0 in basketball back in 1976. So I've been an IU fan forever. So I can't ignore Surratt. I think he's a pretty good pick where he's going. As far as running backs go, the next couple of guys are going to be too high for me. I took Katron Allen a few times. I don't know about him. He's kind of
he's Penn State's all-time leading rusher, believe it or not,
yes.
Bob. So there is that.
2 yards at a time. But a lot of those were 2 yards from the 1 yard, from the 2 yard line. And so maybe he can come in and be that kind of guy in the NFL. So he's a guy that I got a lot down at the Super Bowl drafts, and I was getting him in the 19th, 18th, 17th rounds.
Bob, you just mentioned you're an IU guy. You mentioned Surratt. You didn't mention Cooper. Is it safe to say that you like Surratt's pro prospects better than Omar Cooper Jr.?
Yeah, I think so. I think Surratt is going to be a guy that he isn't quite Wandale, who is another one from this area. He played at Kentucky.
Yep.
But he is a guy that is a possession receiver that I think will do well no matter where they put him. He catches a lot of balls on the outside, kind of an Allen sort of guy from San Diego or from the Chargers. So he can catch a lot of those sideline passes for first downs, but I've seen him go across the middle too. Cooper's good, but I think he jumped up an awful lot when he touched his foot down in the end zone at Penn State.
That's true. Yeah.
And he was still good the rest of the season, but Indiana against Iowa and Penn State really missed Surratt. They were much better offensively. Now, they weren't playing Iowa and Penn State, 2 of the best defenses, but when they had Surratt, they were much better in the playoffs and in the Big Ten championship.
So as long as we're talking IU, the other guy we have to talk about is the guy who's probably going to be going number 1 in the draft, Francisco Mendoza. Bob, I don't know about you. I think he's going to be a good pro. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a top 5 fantasy stud quarterback or at all or anything like that. How do you view Mendoza not only in his rookie year, ostensibly with Las Vegas, which is where we all kind of believe he's going, but just what kind of career he's going to have as well in the NFL?
Well, as a rookie, he's going to start. If he goes to the Raiders, he's going to start there. So anytime you have a rookie starting at quarterback, you've got an opportunity to think, take him in the 19th round and see what happens. Didn't know anything about him until he got to Bloomington. And he's such a big personality in a positive way, but he's a big personality that maybe that makes him a little more winnable than he maybe deserves to be talent-wise. He sure looked in the championship game when he ran the touchdown that's going to be on posters in Bloomington forever. He looked like a guy that had the guts to go do it. And there may not be a lot of quarterbacks like that out there. On the other hand, a lot of quarterbacks like that in the NFL end up with short careers and torn ACLs or broken necks. So I drafted him a couple of times down there as my second quarterback. If I took somebody high, I probably won't take him very much in redraft season.
Not that I want to turn this into a Hoosier show, but I will hear a little bit. You mentioned the 76 team. What about the 87 team with Keith Smart hitting that shot, Bob? What's more legendary, the Keith Smart shot or the Francisco Mendoza run?
Oh, Mendoza.
Wow.
The Keith Smart shot, I can remember where I was, and I was 31 at the time. I guess I was 30, so I hadn't had my birthday yet. But I remember where I was, and I remember we were at a party at somebody's house, and we all went crazy. But for IU to do something in football, Smart came along after Isaiah had won 5 years before, and 6 years before that, they won in 76. And Smart wasn't the guy on that team. The guy on that team was Steve Alford.
Right.
But I think the Mendoza thing will go down in IU lore for a long time, because I don't know if they can ever do it again.
And that's true, and we'll see. I mean, they're going to be a threat for a while. I mean, as long as Signetti's there, it's been pretty tremendous to see. It reminded me. I don't think it was as vintage as the Vince Young run against USC that upset the Trojans in that national championship game, because that was like, there's hardly any time left. With Mendoza, I feel like how much time was left in that game? Like 3 minutes.
Well, there was enough time that Miami came down and scored,
right?
And then IU got the ball back and had to do something, and then they had to hold Miami at the very end. So there was 4 or 5 minutes left to go. Yeah. That Young play, I remember that well. He was running all over the backfield, and my same buddy's best college team is Southern Cal, so I'm cheering for Texas like crazy. So yeah, that was a more one-time big deal play for him to do that. But Mendoza's was a little more exciting, just the fact it was Indiana.
Yeah, it's still crazy to think about, for sure. Let's get to a couple of emails here, Bob, from some viewers. We'll go to Paul in Morehead City, North Carolina. Hello, how does Todd Monken affect the Browns in fantasy? Thank you for the email, Paul. Appreciate that. Yeah, Monken went from the OC in Baltimore, and now he's the head man in Cleveland. Not sure who the quarterback's going to be. It could be Shadur Sanders. Watson is entirely possible, I guess. Maybe they draft somebody, maybe they sign somebody, but certainly they have some difference makers there with Fannin. They have obviously Judkins, in the backfield. What do you think Monken does for these guys? This is probably a commentary, and like I could probably just go back and look at your drafts. How did you handle the Browns on Super Bowl weekend? Are you a believer in this offense with Todd Monken?
Not really. The guy I over-invested in this year with Jerry dropped the ball all the time, Judy. And that's because he came through for me. That's that recency bias stuff. He came through for me in 24, and he took me down to the pits a few times in 25. So I don't have a lot of confidence. I drafted Judkins in a couple of dynasty teams before he had the whole legal run in.
Yep.
And so I got real down on him just because I thought it was a throwaway pick. But he looks like he might actually be a real player. Fannin is definitely the real thing. for them. I don't know. I'm thinking they will go out and grab themselves a receiver somewhere. Sanders is not the answer there. I think Watson is probably washed. So I don't know. I mean, Munkin's going to come in. He's going to run the ball. So maybe Judkins is going to be the guy to do it. And maybe Sanders can run the ball like a lightweight Lamar.
I like Fannin in that offense. What I don't love about Fannin is his price tag right now. Fannin in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament is tight end 5. And I feel like people might be drafting him at his ceiling. Obviously, FFPC tight end premium. So he is actually a 4th round pick right behind Tyler Warren. But if you wait on Fannin and decide not to draft him in the 4th round, you could get Tucker Kraft in the 5th. You could get Pitts or Laporta in the 6th. So I mean, I think Fannin's going to be good. I wonder if we pushed his price tag up a little bit too high right now. That's my only reservation with him.
Yeah. And speaking of Kraft, I took Kraft on that team with the 5 rookie wide receivers as my tight end. I sure hope your Packers can do for Kraft what they did last year before he got hurt, because he was one of the 2 or 3 best tight ends in the league.
Yeah, he was right up. I think he was tight end 2, fantasy wise, when he got hurt. And I said, I didn't want to invest in any Packers pass catchers because it just was so hit or miss week to week. And then Kraft kind of bucked that trend. Like he seemed to be a focal point. I mean, we haven't heard, at least I haven't heard a whole lot here in Northeast Wisconsin about how his recovery is going. I know he's a beast. I know he wants to be ready by week 1. I think that my guess is there's better than a 50% chance that he'll be out there week 1. Maybe it's even higher than that. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I think when he's out there, he's going to be featured quite a bit. Probably no Romeo Doubs on the Packers this year, which is going to open up even more opportunities for Kraft. But I'm with you. Like I think as a guy who loves cheering for his Packers, but hates drafting Packers because, especially pass catchers, because it's just they spread the ball around so much. I think Kraft is the guy that is the exception to the rule there. Yeah. One more email here for you, Bob. Right now, this comes from Dave in Dial, Georgia. Are you in on James Cook this season? Thanks so much. That is Dave in Dial, Georgia. Be honest with you, I was kind of out on him this past season, Bob, because I didn't think he would do what he did in 2024 again in 2025, and I was right. The problem, he was even better in 2025. He did even more in 2025. His price tag is now ascended to the 203 in the Never Too Early Best Ball Tournament. He's running back 7 right now, right behind Achane and Genty, going ahead of Hampton, Barkley, Chase Brown, and Jeremiah Love. What about you? Are you in or out on Cook? I don't remember. Did you take Cook at all at Super Bowl weekend?
I didn't get him. He was on my next guy to pick up list, and people got him in front of me. I think where he's going is the right spot for him. He's never going to be a huge yardage guy. I don't think he's going to be touchdowns, but Buffalo scores, and he can catch the ball and run it in, or he can run it in up the middle, and he can go, around the edge and get the ball in the end zone. So I think that's about where he belongs, is where he goes. I don't know that I'll get a lot of him. I try not to take a lot of running backs in the second round.
James Cook was probably the biggest beneficiary when Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator there. They really put an emphasis on that ground game. And now Joe Brady is no longer the OC, but he is the head coach for Buffalo. So it should mean good things for Cook going forward. A couple other things to keep in mind, or at least I'm keeping in mind about this situation. Not the greatest free agent crop for wide receivers. And I don't know if Buffalo will be in a position to take a difference-making wide receiver. I know they've been Casey Concepcion has been mocked to Buffalo quite a bit there. And I just wonder what a rookie receiver would do in that offense year 1. I don't know how big of an impact he might have. And I don't think there's anybody that impactful in free agency, which should mean another big year from James Cook. Certainly, I'm with you.
If I had to make a bet right now on where he will land, I think Pittman will wind up in Buffalo.
Boy, that would be, and that'd be good for Pittman too.
Yeah, it would. I mean, he can play in the snow and the cold, and he could. I think he would mesh with Allen. So that's really, if I had to place a bet, I would put him in Buffalo.
And they have so many of these slot guys in Buffalo. It'd be nice to get a guy like Pittman, who is like a guy who can be beastly on the outside. That'd be pretty cool to see. I'd like to see that as well, for sure. No more emails from now. We might, I don't know. We're running out of time. We'll try to get some more later on in the show. But Bob, I want to ask you the question Ferrell always asks every week. Is there one player or maybe a couple of players that you're trying to get on as many teams as possible this year? And then is there a player or maybe multiple players that you're looking to avoid at all costs on your FFPC and KFFSC teams this season?
I think I mentioned him in passing. Cortland Sutton is a guy that I had a lot of this year across multiple teams, and I got several of. I think I got 3 out of 6 on Super Bowl Sunday with him. I just like him. At this point, they don't have a wide receiver 2. They don't have a tight end. Their wide receiver 2 was R.J. Harvey going down, running down the stretch. So I like Sutton. I think he's still undervalued. Rico is another guy that I like, that I think may be undervalued a little bit if he lands in the right spot, which is probably not back at Carolina. Because Chuba and maybe Brooks would be competition, or Chuba, however you want to say it. So I would say Sutton and then Rico would be a couple. If you ask me who I don't want anybody from Minnesota. I don't know what to do with the running back room. I drafted Mason a few times, but Aaron Jones still seems to be the guy they give the ball to when they got to throw the ball for a first down or even run it. And he's got to be getting close to the end of his line. So I don't know what to do with that. TJ Hawkinson and Addison, they would completely forget them until the fourth quarter when they were down by 18 points. And then all of a sudden, because I had Hawkinson a few times, I noticed, all of a sudden they would throw the ball to Hawkinson on 4 out of 5 passes. It's like, well, why didn't you use him earlier? Is he still lingering injury or what? So I don't know what about him. And Addison, he regressed throughout the year from last year and from the early part of this year. I don't know what to think about Addison. Naylor almost stepped up in front of him in some ways. So if I were to say, I don't want anybody from Minnesota.
In Minnesota's so interesting. I think I was talking last night about this with Tom Brawley from Fantasy Points on Insider Access. There's a lot that can still happen to that offense this offseason. Like Jordan Addison, there's been talk that they might move him. Hawkinson could be a cap casualty. Jones and Mason, I do believe, are still free agents. And Jones turns 32 this year. You talked about it, almost the end of the line. 32 years old for a non-Derrick Henry running back is getting up there, right? I think that there's a lot to keep in mind there. Plus, what happens if they do sign a running back in free agency? What happens if they do trade for or sign a quarterback who starts at the beginning of the season to give JJ McCarthy more time to mature and get mental? I mean, like there's just so much that could still happen with this Minnesota team. But as it stands right now, I'm kind of with you, Bob. I know Steve G was in the chat talking about wanting Justin Jefferson everywhere. And I do think there's something to be said for that. But these other fringe guys on this team, Jefferson's good enough to carry himself. I don't know if the rest of these guys are. So
the concern with Jefferson is if McCarthy comes and plays the first 2 or 3 games and really struggles, throws 2 interceptions a game, he's going to find himself on the bench. And I don't know that they're going to be able to bring somebody in. Darnold's not coming back. So, I don't know who they're going to bring in. They're going to bring Kirk Cousins back north. What are they going to bring the older quarterbacks to hold the position until McCarthy's ready? I don't know who they're going to get.
Yeah. And think about like some of these other options that could be available. Like Tunga Vailoa, I don't know how they bring him aboard with his contract. You could say the same thing with Kyler Murray. And even if they did find a way to do that, I don't know if they're a better option than JJ McCarthy. You know what I mean? So there is something to be said for just, regardless of what Minnesota could do, quarterback, it might just be shuffling deck chairs around on the Titanic.
The last thing I'll say and let you get on with things is if they really want to go to the Packers, maybe they will get Aaron Rodgers and bring him to Minnesota.
That could be as well.
I don't think that'll happen, but he's weird enough that he might want to do that.
It's funny, and I think we have an email. Do we have an email? No, we don't. We in this next section. Let's talk Rogers in Fantasy Flash here coming up. We'll do quick hitters on these because I think the Rogers thing is an interesting one to talk about. Ian Cunningham, who is the new GM for the Falcons, said that there's a lot of discussions for us about the entire roster, end quote, when he was talking about whether Michael Penix would come back to be the starting quarterback at the start of the season. Now, he's coming off a torn ACL. Remember, this dude is almost 26 years old. He was an older guy when he actually was an old IU guy.
He was a Hoosier.
Yeah, he was a Hoosier. That's right. So he says he expects to be ready week 1, but it doesn't sound like the GM is super enthusiastic about saying he's our guy to start. This is more of a question on, especially if they tag Kyle Pitts, but it's a question on Drake London as well. Does the kind of uncertainty at the Falcons quarterback position give you any pause when you're thinking about drafting players like London, Pitts, or quite frankly, even Bijan Robinson at 101?
Not Bijan. He's the real deal. His rookie season, I wasn't sure he was the guy they said he was, but boy, he is the guy now. Drake London, I think, also is. I don't care who's throwing him. I think I could throw the ball to Drake London. He could catch 10 passes a game. Pitts, he looked pretty good at times this year. He looked real good, but that was with Cousins. I don't know about him. Mooney, I don't even know. Is Mooney going to be back?
My guess is not. I'll look at his contract status right now, but I don't think he's going to factor into that offense.
So it's not going to slow me down on Robinson or London. They're too good.
Mooney right now is under contract for 1 more year, but there is a potential out with an $11 million dead cap hit if Atlanta wants to move on from. I don't know what their cap situation's like, but regardless, I don't think he's gonna be a fantasy factor at all. Let's go to the world champion Seattle Seahawks here. Brian Fleury, who was the run game coordinator and tight ends coach for the San Francisco 49ers in 2025, is now the offensive coordinator for the defending champs. He says Seattle's offense is, quote, going to have continuity from 2025. It's going to be implementing a dynamic run game and keeping things quarterback friendly in the red zone. This is good to hear, Bob, that the new OC wants to keep everything as similar as possible to last season when they won the whole shebang. That makes perfect sense. Shifts, motion, play action, those should all be more prevalent for Seattle this year. When you consider sort of a dark horse hire, a surprising hire, a guy who does not have play calling experience, I guess like it doesn't make me nervous about JSN. But I don't know about Kenneth Walker or Sam Darnold late or AJ Barner late. What do you think the Seattle offense is going to look like? And maybe we can't truly answer this question until we know what they're doing in the backfield.
Well, Walker was phenomenal in the playoffs. And I don't know how they can relegate him to a 60-40 split again with Charbonnet. But
and Charbonnet's going to be
they had the best record around doing the 60-40 split, and that worked. So, maybe they will do that. I don't know how. Barner was the guy that surprised me. They had the rookie this year, or maybe it's the other tight end. I can't think of his name.
Elijah Arroyo?
Yes. I thought he would be the tight end.
Yeah.
Barner's better. So I hope for their sake they stay the same.
Michael Kinzel, the fantasy meatball, saying Torrey Horton is going to be a very spicy late round flyer. That is interesting. I know I have Horton on a couple of dynasties. We'll see what happens. I think it's Cooper Kupp's second year. It'll be his second year. I think he signed a 3-year deal, and he'll be back next year. But Horton looked like he was becoming more and more involved in that offense before he went down.
So as far as Kupp goes, they were. They look like they were doing the NBA thing where you get your veterans, your old veterans, you just rest them all season, then you use them in the playoffs.
Fire them up for the playoffs, yeah,
that's true. That's what they seem to be doing with Kupp, because in the playoffs he was a much better player.
He was. Didn't have that wear and tear on him throughout the season. Well, JSN pretty much did all the heavy lifting all year in that passing offense, and then he went down he was getting checked out for concussion in the Super Bowl, and Kupp actually turned it on in the Super Bowl. I think he led him in receiving yards in that game too. So,
my grandson told me that I should have drafted a ton of JSN when we were drafting. I mean, he said they let everybody else go. He must be good, and I was like, no, he's not that good. He's an Ohio State guy,
Did you get any Smith and Jigba last year, Bob?
I think I had 35 teams that I managed last year between dynasties and redrafts. I think I had him on 2 teams. So I was underweight.
Well, at least you got some. Some. We'll stick in the same division. We'll talk about Arizona. Doug Haller covers the Arizona Cardinals for The Athletic. He says that running back James Conner could be a potential cap casualty. He's going to be 31 at the start of the season, had a foot/ankle injury early on and pretty much did not play almost the entire season. It would save him $8 million against the cap, dead cap just over $2 million. 32 rushes, 95 yards, and a touchdown. He did catch 8 passes as well last year for a touchdown and 38 yards. Obviously, this is, Connor's probably going to catch on somewhere. I'm not excited to draft him for fantasy. This is more of a question on Trey Benson and what you think the Arizona backfield is going to be looking like. Are you in on Benson this year, Bob? Right now, if I look at the FFPC never too early ADP on Benson, it's all the way down at running back 38 at the 1006, which to me suggests FFPC drafters are expecting Arizona to add somebody to this backfield. Is the juice worth the squeeze in the mid-10th right now for a guy like Trey Benson?
Yeah, I think it definitely is, because even if he winds up the number 2 guy or the 1B or whatever, there's still a lot of opportunity there if he can stay healthy. As for Connor, I hope he doesn't retire. He's such a good guy. And his story of coming back health-wise from the cancer and everything, I don't want him to go out the way this season went for him, with no season at all after a couple of games. So I hope he goes someplace else and can do something.
I think Connor too. I haven't heard anything that he might hang it up or anything like that. I think he wants to keep playing, and I think his experience and his pass catching acumen,
yes,
which has really come on. I think somebody's going to be interested, and they're going to sign him.
Last Aaron Jones.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's as athletic, but certainly when it comes to pass catching chops, he's right up there with Aaron Jones for sure. The last thing I'll bring up is Aaron Jones' old teammate in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers. Brooke Pryor, who covers the Steelers for ESPN, said that Rodgers is more likely than not to play for the Steelers this upcoming season. Pittsburgh wants to know his intentions sooner rather than later. I don't think they're going to find out before the scouting combine, which I believe starts Monday. Is it Thursday? Okay.
Yeah, I heard that today on the radio. It starts with defensive linemen and linebackers.
There you go. So now Mike McCarthy, the new head coach in Pittsburgh, says he likes Will Howard. He has a plan to develop Will Howard. I don't think Pittsburgh wants to go into this season with Will Howard as their starting quarterback. There is a lot of talk about, Rodgers and McCarthy reuniting in Pittsburgh, but these guys left on really bad terms in Green Bay when McCarthy was fired midseason, which the Packers never do. So I don't know. I guess it's possible to see a Rodgers-McCarthy reunion. I'd kind of like to see it for fantasy purposes, because I do think that's not that Pittsburgh is ripe with fantasy goodness. I mean, outside of Metcalf and Warren, I don't know. I know Pat Freiermuth is getting a little bit of buzz as well. Is there anybody else in Pittsburgh you're looking at right now, Bob?
No, I've got a lot of Metcalf. I'm holding on to him in dynasty leagues because he has no value. And I've always liked DK, out in Seattle. He was okay this year. He wasn't anything great, but he was he's a good 3rd or 4th wide receiver on a team. Johnson is not going to play in the NFL, running back.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. I wasn't impressed with anything I saw from him. Freiermuth is okay. Pittsburgh's going to go 9-8 again.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with the backfield. If they do let Gainwell go, we'll know how they feel about Caleb Johnson, because if they let Gainwell go and they replace him with one of these big free agent running backs and like Tyler Algier or somebody like that, who's then we'll know like, okay, it sounds like Pittsburgh's ready to throw in the towel on Caleb Johnson.
Well,
if they don't, then I don't know. Maybe the door opens for Johnson.
When Warren went down and when Gainwell was a little knocked up, they didn't give Johnson a chance then. They didn't say, well, hey, we're going to make the playoffs. Let's see what this guy can do, this rookie. He sat the bench the entire – he got a couple of games. I don't think he got in other than special teams maybe.
Where he was screwed up on special teams too.
Yes, he did.
It was bad. It's like, wasn't a good year for Caleb Johnson. It was a good show with Bob Hogan tonight. However, the 4-time FFPC league champ, many time over champion in the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at Hooterville A's on the X. Bob, can't thank you enough for popping on tonight. Sitting in the co-host chair, you filled Ferrell's shoes very well. I'll look forward to drafting again against you and sitting at the same table with you probably several times over. And it coming up at Caesars this coming August. Enjoy drafting season. Until then, I'm sure I'm going to probably see you in some slow drafts in Kentucky as well. Thanks again for hanging out with me tonight, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go Hoosiers.
Absolutely.
That is Bob Hogan, ladies and gentlemen, hanging out with us tonight here on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. That's going to complete our show. I do want to thank Bob Hogan, the FFPC, Rob Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you. We will be back next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. In case you missed FFPC Insider Access show last night on the Better Sports Network, I had on Fantasy Points Tom Brawley. Really good conversation. We did go over some ADPs in the Never Too Early tournament. He gave us some insight into that, but the real insight on this show last night was he has posted 2 separate articles for Fantasy Points on 2026 Super Bowl odds, 2026 MVP odds. So go check that out. We talked a little bit about it. If you are looking to put a few shekels down and cashing in on some value now, remember, the Seahawks were 60-1 at this time last year to win the Super Bowl. The Patriots were 120-1. We talked about some long shots, not only for Super Bowl, but MVP as well. As a fun episode. You can watch it back on any of the FFPC socials as well as FFPC YouTube channel as well. FFPC Dynasty and Empire Orphans, many discounted all the way down to $1. Pick them up right now at myffpc.com/dynasty for sale. While you're there, you can register for the FFPC Never Too Early and Superflex Never Too Early Best Ball Tournaments, $125 and $35 respectively. In that, both feature five-figure grand prizes. God, I can't count. $40,000 and $10,000 respectively on that. And the Gorillas are awaiting you to enter the draft rooms as well. Plenty of live drafts and slow drafts. We've been filling live drafts in the Big Gorilla for sure. Baby Gorilla, $125 entry, $100,000 grand prize, $1 million grand prize once again for the FFPC Big Gorilla. $350 to enter that. The 7 Bananas and early Rampage tournament going on right now as well. 2 tournaments for the price of 1. You cannot beat that. It's all at myffpc.com, myffpc.com. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live, which will be next Thursday on FFPC Insider Access. We will be talking with Johnny Tuma, who is a Dynasty and NFL draft expert for Player Profiler, 7 to 9 Eastern Time on Thursday night. That'll be fun. And then Ferrell will be back next Friday as we bring you another High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, our final show for the month of February. And then we're into March, baby. It is all happening with fantasy football and the FFPC. For Bob Hogan, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Your weekend officially starts now.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
One other thing I want to mention, too, we have Big Gorilla drafts going on, obviously nightly. We have Big Gorilla drafts going on, I think, at 2 different time slots, Saturdays and Sundays going forward here. We'll obviously add more onto that, but you will not be waiting long for these Big Gorillas. Check them out, as well as the slow drafts, 2-hour and 6-hour as well, myffpc.com. is where to go for that. That said, thank you. I'm so glad to be back on Fridays. Thank you for putting up with our Wednesday show the last 3 weeks. I'm going to put this out there. Maybe I shouldn't. There could be a change in what night of the show we do this show going forward. As more develops on that, we'll let you know. But as of right now, we will see you next Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.